because Bray Bray was born with a rare genetic disorder, DNAI1. So he's in a wheelchair, he doesn't walk, he doesn't talk, but he's a shining light and the happiest kid on the planet. A lot of my poems are getting a lot of comments, and I love seeing when my favorite thing is, like, say I get 50 likes and 50 comments, that means there's real engagement going on. It's not just people liking it and moving on, they're liking it and taking the time to comment also.
Welcome to today's live session. And of course, for everyone who has no clue who you are, it would be wonderful to learn a bit more about who you are. And then maybe also I can do screen sharing and then share or you can also do screen sharing and then we can share some poems and also share your notes feed so people can get a feeling for what you're doing on Substack. Incredible work.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so I am Chris B. Wright on Substack. I joined 7 months ago. I am a writer, poet, and caregiver to my son, Braden, who we call Bray Bray. And I started this journey on a whim. I was like, I need to start sharing my son's story because Bray Bray was born with a rare genetic disorder, DNAI1. So he's in a wheelchair, he doesn't walk, he doesn't talk, but he's a shining light and the happiest kid on the planet. So I joined Substack to really lend my voice as the witness to the miracle that Bray Bray is. And for me, it's just been an absolute thrill ride. I am just connecting with so many other caregivers and writers and people who genuinely, they see Braden's shining light and they respond to it. So I'm just very blessed that he's medically okay at the moment. We almost lost him 2 years ago when he was in the hospital for 28 days, 26 of which were in the pediatric ICU. So I joined to give him a voice, to be a witness to the miracle that he is, and I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, this is wonderful. So I'm often seeing Bray Bray here in notes, and I wanted to show there's like this, for instance, here got 100 likes and 2 comments and stuff. So I think, yeah, for many, this really evokes lots of emotions, and people gonna see this. And then somehow also I told you before the live we chatted about Tanvi. So I interviewed her. She's a physician, and she is from, I think it's San Francisco. And she, for instance, she also has like one of her kids is also like in a wheelchair now, and she's also struggling a lot. So I think there are a lot on Substack, especially those like hiding in the dark. I guess, Chris, you also like learned this at some point. So you sometimes have a feeling like, oh, this one, for instance, just got whatever, like 5 likes or so. But then some people gonna reach out to you via direct messages and gonna share. And I bet this is gonna happen with Chris. Gonna say, wow, Chris, this is so brave of you. Whatever, my grandkid or my kid or whatever. Also, like I have a similar situation or something like this. Or I know, for instance, that also Janet Ridsdale, she also has an adult son at home. She has to be careful, for example. So there are lots of people on Substack who can connect with you on this. Maybe Chris, you can show us a bit around here when it comes to your house that is Substack in your home.
Sure. So very first post I did is the one at the top here called His One Smile. That's my quote unquote hero post. And that was my first foray into Substack. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to lay it all out there. I'm going to share Bray Bray's story. I'm going to tell them exactly what's going on and why I'm here. And then right below that in my top post is the Alpenglow poem, which is right there. It went viral a couple of weeks ago. And I think it's just a very relatable poem because there's an ethereal message here of the imagery of the Alps. We had a very, very cold winter here in Long Island, New York. And I wrote this poem on a very frigid Sunday morning. I was sick of the cold weather. And so there's a metaphor here of climbing that impossible mountain that maybe isn't so impossible, but also the literal image of I really want to see a mountain sunrise because it's been very, very cold here. So it really took off, I think, because of those 2 reasons.
Yeah, and I guess this image here, this is AI generated, but I think at the same time, since you gave it like this human touch with the poem, it doesn't feel so AI, you know what I mean? So often now also with poems, I have the feeling, you know, the picture is AI generated and the poem somehow could also be AI generated, you know what I mean? Like, but with this one, I'm like, I love this picture so much. This is perfectly prompted. So I guess you created this yourself, right? With AI, I guess.
All of my poetry is my own work. I do not use AI for any of my poetry, but for the graphic here, I definitely wanted to capture that vibe of the mountain sunrise, which I didn't have accessible to me at the moment. So I did use ChatGPT just to create the image. And I literally said, show me an Alpenglow, put a guy on a mountain in the snow. And that's what they came up with. And I really liked the image. And it does tie in well to the poem. One thing I wanted to mention, Christina, is there's a post of yours I keep going back to that you wrote called "The Internet is Dead, Human Writers Are Not." And for me, that spoke so much to me because I genuinely feel that way, that there is a way for our human voices to come through in this age of AI. And honestly, you hit the nail on the head with my notes feed. It's me, it's my son Bray Bray, it's pictures, snapshots of our lives with the poems and the posts, and I do music playlists. And, I really think that human component, if you can nail that and be authentic and have your real voice, then that's the key to really growing in a crowded space such as literature.
Yeah, so the idea of this was here, The Internet is Dead, Human Writers Are Not. This is together with Karen Salmonson. She's a best-selling author. The moment I interviewed her, I didn't know she was a best-selling author. It was just like 2 hours before I actually interviewed her last year that I was like, wow, she has written like 50 books and she sold 2 million books. I was like, wow. And then when I met her, like the first 2 sentences already, they were so Karen, you know what I mean? And I think with Chris, with you, this is similar. And when exactly this happens, you have this, as I always call it, like writer thumbprint. This was something that already like 2 years back, someone like a Google expert told me. And back then I was like, what does he mean with like writer thumbprint? But now in the age of AI, it's really all about this, that at some point, like AI, which is also, of course, Google, because there are lots of AI bots scouring your stuff and so on. And so they're going to see, oh, wow, this is so Chris, this is so Karen, this is so Christina. And when you come to this point, and then Google and all the other AI search engines and whatever, like however you want to call it, like in AI, when you search for something, search bars, they're going to tell then, oh, cool, yeah, Chris, he's a poet. He's whatever, like writing in literature on Substack. And his writing is unique. These are like the 5 characteristics for his writing, something like this. Then you really made it. And this is exactly what I was talking with Karen about. You might know about this, of course. Yeah, I called it like The Internet is Dead because, the AI-generated content has now like quietly really surpassed the human-written content. And someone in comments also said, this is why I changed this here, like this tsunami of AI slop. And this is real. This is more a tsunami. I said here, it's flood, AI flood. And she said it's more like a tsunami, which is right. It's really a tsunami because we can't do anything about it. There is this huge, huge wave that coming, and it's going to here to stay, similar to what Karen shared in this. And so the best thing that can happen really to you is that at some point, if you're gonna dare to share your stories. So for instance, Chris, for you, so for instance, with my kids, for instance, I wouldn't show their faces.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful of not showing them, and I may be showing their hands. Today, for instance, we like batch bake Easter cookies. That I showed the hands and stuff. And for you, it's really showing the face of your son. But I know why you're doing this, and people also get it. So at some point, you also might have the feeling that like the people are popping up in your notes feed like popcorn, like your people. And I think this is what you're doing at the moment. That you're really building this community, right, Chris? Maybe you can share a bit more about this, how you are approaching like this writer thumbprint when we maybe going back to Alpenglow.
Sure. So I always tend to say more with less, and you can tell my writing by the personality between the lines. So I write with specific imagery and I try to ground those images, but then I also have an abstract or emotional component to my writing. So for example, I wrote a poem called Shave, and the whole concept of the poem Shave, it's authentically mine because I start with this image of a father and a son, typical parenting, where the father's teaching the son how to shave at a certain point in his life. So I thought I'd teach you how to shave. As you ask me about cologne, you'd say it's only men's perfume. we'd laugh, I'd hold that sound like stone. So that concept of shaving and cologne and teaching your son how to do that, that's the intro to the poem. And it's very grounded in a specific image. But then as we get towards the end of the poem, there's a shift that talks about, all of a sudden I'm lifting you from your wheelchair. We won't be able to do certain things that we imagined. And by the end of the poem, I go back to that image of shaving and cologne. And I basically say, we won't laugh over men's perfume. I hold your bravery like stone. So there's always a specific image that I have in mind, or something where I'm really tying in my unique experiences as Braden's dad or as a caregiver to then express larger point that anybody can really hold on to and interpret.
Yeah, and also that you're making this so personable, that you dare to share personal photos. It could also happen that at some point you're gonna get like trolls or stuff, which many people fear, especially if, make your message. I think somehow you're doing this with Bray Bray. And then it could happen that at some point, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but many are not sharing their vulnerable stuff. They are not sharing it or not sharing it anymore because there was a troll or a hater and this person said, you know what, you're fat, or why are you know what I mean? Like, I had, for instance, I had someone, and she was like telling people how awesome it is, for instance, to lose fat. And then she got lots of direct messages or somehow emails and so, where she told me that like the haters, they said, yeah, why did you get so fat in the first place? And she was like, maybe I should quit everything. And she quit. She really quit. She doesn't write about her diet and her losing weight journey anymore. You know what I mean? Like, how are you? Have you ever like experienced something like this?
I started the end of 2025 with empathy, and I'm leading with empathy. And I went into 2026, you hit the nail on the head before, Christina, with community. So I'm trying to build a community where people feel like they can be themselves, they can express what they need to express as caregivers who can be very lonely at times. And I'm actually very blessed so far where I haven't gotten trolled yet. However, I have gotten amazing messages from people telling me that they saw Braden smile and it brightened their day, or they see what I'm going through as Braden's dad and it makes them feel like they're not alone in their own journeys. And I think another reason that this is working for me is I love going live with other caregivers. I do a weekly series right now on Tuesday nights where I'm talking to other people in the same situation. And we're just talking like we're chatting at a bar. I don't pay attention to, who's watching. We just try to get in that pocket of real authenticity. And it's been resonating with so many people. And I'm very, very blessed to have this community that's been supporting me this whole time.
And how are you feeling about these lives? I think these are some of the lives I could share here, Chris. For instance, here with Mary Beth as an example. How are you feeling about these lives? Because again, many people then don't dare to go live. For instance, also Tamara Monosov, maybe you know her. She's all about great divorce. She texted me today and she was like, oh, Christina, I'm doing the live next week. We definitely have to test this together. So I said, yeah, sure, we can do it today or tomorrow or so. How are you feeling about these live streams on Substack? Because I think actually they are a gold mine. I also see lots of people joining me and the Honor Writing Club as paid members because of the lives. And I'm also seeing like a peak of subscribers. I'm seeing a peak when it comes to views, of course, with the lives. How are you thinking about these lives when it comes to community and also when it comes to growth, of course, subscriber growth?
Oh, yes. So I used to do radio shows in college. So I've always been comfortable going live. So I've done this for 20 years where interviewing people, very comfortable with that. And it was live radio 3 hours a night when I was in college. So very comfortable with the format. And I try to just, when I do my lives, I have two goals. The first goal is to lift the other person up that I'm interviewing and make them feel comfortable. And the second goal is to, of course, drive the subscribers that I want to have, the ones that will stay with me, the ones who understand this journey, relate to the journey. It's very important to have an active subscriber base and ones that are all in with you rather than the ones that subscribe and then never look at your content ever again. So I think it's really valuable in really developing a community of the people that are aligned with what you're writing about and talking about. And I'm sure you found that as well.
Yeah. And I think especially with this lift others up, this is very important. So for me, I always tell people, hey, everything is cool. Similar to our chat today, like I let you shine because for me, I love to feature others who are like successful on Substack, and especially like small guys who similar to you, who then start and belong to the category. Like I knew Chris when, so we never know where Chris is going to be like in 2 months or 2 years from now. And I also love that you said the audience I want to have, because this is very important. Lately, I had the feeling it's also often on notes like this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like follow for follow, subscribe for
Yeah, yeah,
subscribe,
yeah.
or hey, I'm new, join this thread, so you're gonna get 100 new subscribers or so. Yeah, but if someone just joins you because it's like a newbie thing and people gonna support you, this is not real, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
then also often I'm doing this like, hey, who's new? Say hi. And then someone said to me, Christina, but you didn't subscribe. And I said, well, why should I subscribe? I don't understand what your Substack is about yet. But the moment I understand it, I might subscribe. But at the same time, I guess it's the same with you, especially when you're joining Substack, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to subscribe to whatever, 20, 30, 50 people or so. But then at some point, it's spring. So you have to do some spring cleaning stuff. So you're going to say, oh no, I can't go with these 50 because otherwise my inbox is going to explode. So you're going to go like, okay, I have to unsubscribe to this person, unsubscribe to this. And then you still can follow this person, which I think is super important.
Yes.
So my recommendation would really be for all the newbies, don't do this like follow for follow and subscribe for subscribe. In the beginning, it might be good, but it's more important to, as Chris, as you shared, like to really find the people who want to be with you and to fit. So, and this fit here, which I think is amazing because Substack changed this. So I can now click on a specific tab, because before I was like sharing one screen and then I need to stop and then share the next tab. But now it's nice because I have like 4 tabs open. I can switch. So this is cool. And yeah, so here, for instance, with the about, I think again, the ways how Chris notes and with his long form assets or his poems can connect, of course, is he makes everything like super personable. And when you, for instance, come maybe via notes, which is like, you could say like the business card, and then for Chris, it's really
Yep.
like the business card. And then I think with your newsletter, it's more like a book, like where all the poems are in this specific book. And so what they're going to see then is, wow, okay, this is apparently Bray Bray. You can learn more about who Chris is, which I think is very important. You make it super personable. Alone, this t-shirt here with pickleball hall, where people say, oh, cool, he's a pickleball player. I'm also a pickleball player. I know
Yes.
that there are lots of fans of pickleball, also now in Germany. And then, of course, explaining why should anyone care about this? Why should someone join? This is just how it is. And of course, explaining like people are that Chris wants to attract, what they're going to get if they become a free subscriber and what they're going to get as a paid subscriber. And since I know, Chris, that you've been also rising, do you have some tips for, especially for beginners or others in literature, how you like beefed up your paid subscriptions? So people apparently are now joining. What do you think is like your secret here to the paid tiers? Or is there anything else you're doing so you're going to rise further?
Actually, this is a very important lesson for people, is that I joined Substack 7 months ago with no prior following on a whim, right? But I figured it out. I honed my craft. And the biggest key is being real, being present, being yourself, showing empathy, building community, doing those things consistently. So don't go for those cheap, subscribe for subscribe, as you said. Lend a unique perspective. People know that I'm trying to lend my literary voice to caregiving, that I feel it's underrepresented as a dad, especially to, be able to share my vulnerability, I think is really something that people resonate with. Wow, this is a guy doing this. This is somebody in touch, with his real emotional feelings and the PTSD of almost losing my son 2 years ago. So a lot has to do with me just going all in on the authenticity of it and just being me, but being consistent with it. I am on notes. I am present on notes. And Christina, just like you, and I have to give you so much credit for being so accessible to people, because you don't have to do that and you do it so well, and we all appreciate that. So just being accessible and knowing that everyone started somewhere is huge.
Yeah, I think this belongs to the part where where you said you want to lift others up, because this is exactly what you did. Thank you so much, Chris. And when you say like all in when it comes to authenticity, and I was sharing this with the haters and stuff, do you like reply to people who gonna say something awful about you or your son or your family or what you're doing or so, or do you say I don't care, I'm gonna block this person?
I don't care because they must have something else going on that's making them feel that way. And I know who I am, and I know that my son does not deserve any of that. And it's funny. A lot of the times I joke around with my family that maybe Bray Bray's the smartest kid in the room because he's loved, cared for, and protected, and he doesn't have to worry about any of this during his life. So, I truly feel like he was born to be my miracle. There's a great movie called Winter's Tale, and it's basically about that concept where some people are born to lift others up in ways that you might not expect. And that's what he does for us.
Wonderful to hear. Yeah, and also if you're giving birth to a baby, you never know what's gonna happen after. So also like I thought like pregnancy would be like the time, and when pregnancy went well and everything, then everything is gonna be good. But this is not the case. And so every single day, I guess with yours it's the same. I'm checking whether my kid breathing in the evening. I'm like, yes, okay, now I can fall asleep. It is, I think somehow this is like what we do as parents. Do you also do something like this, Chris? Yeah, I guess with
Oh,
your, especially with Bray Bray, you have to.
we have to. I mean, we always have to be on top of his medications and his equipment. And he does have obstructive sleep apnea. So
Oh.
at night, we put him in a CPAP machine, which, thank God we have because it's helping him sleep during the night. So it's a peace of mind for us these days. And yeah, so we just always make sure he's cared for, he's safe, and he really is like I'm very lucky. Like his smile is the closest thing you can get to pure innocence on this planet. And really that carries us through during all of the harder times that, we go down those rabbit holes. Of course we do. We're human, thinking about what could have been his life and what his life is, but we learned a long time ago to grieve the life he would have had and embrace the life he does have. And I think that's another part of the story that's resonating with people is as a caregiver to somebody like Bray Bray, it's okay to have those feelings. It's valid to feel angry, frustrated, tired, exhausted. And what I try to do is express those feelings, but I always just naturally also provide that tinge of hope, that tinge of perseverance. And his smile shows that too.
And when you're thinking about like community, because I think this is like the biggest part for you, who are your people, Chris? How would you like, is it, you know what I mean? Like this ideal reader, like my ideal reader is whatever, like 34. And in the morning when he's commuting, he's checking out my podcast, you know what I mean? Like, and la la la. And do you also have this ideal reader? Do you know who this community is? And what are their pain points that you are having a solution for?
Sure. So my community, I feel like, is the later millennials into the Gen X crew. So I'm talking probably 35 to about 65. These are the people that a lot of them are sandwich caregivers. So they have their own kids and then all of a sudden their parents have issues and they're thrust into those roles. And that's very hard. And there's so many people like that where they reach out to me and say, I see what you do with your son. My dad has dementia. We're going through something right now. And this really helped me put things in perspective. So I think that's my core audience right there. And really people who understand that there are different ways to express what you're going through, but you can still do it with grace and humility.
And when you're writing your long form posts, I also call like the poems long form
Yeah.
posts. How much time do you put into writing these? And do you have like any tips for others who want to share their poems on Substack?
Sure. I have three tips. One, just I write naturally. I write in waves, and I've been very prolific because when I read the other people on Substack, they're inspiring me to then write in different ways that I hadn't even thought of before. So one thing I would say is connect with other writers and really like pay attention. Don't just like scroll through. Pay attention, sit with some of them for a while, and you'll be surprised what you come up with based on being inspired by them. The other thing I would say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Just be honest. Don't worry about the reception. because you should write from an audience of one first. If you write from that audience of one first, the rest will follow. Be true to yourself. And then the other thing I would say, and this ties into the community aspect, is collaborate. I love collaborating. I've collaborated with so many people over the past few months, and it's led to only great things. There's a parenting caregiving network that's officially being launched tomorrow through my friend Victoria, Carer Mentor. And it's a group of 12 parents like me just answering questions and being a resource for other caregivers. There are so many great things you can do when you collaborate with other people. My friend Jeannie Ewing and I ran a caregivers workshop together, and we had 10 people that signed up, and we ran it, and it was an honest and safe space for people to really sit with their feelings, and we gave them prompts and things of that nature. And then one other thing I just launched today is Read and Write Poetry is my other Substack. I literally just started today, where I'm going to be teaching people how to read and write poetry effectively, just giving my knowledge and expertise. So collaborations are amazing, and I really recommend aligning with those people and then going that extra mile and collaborating with them.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to collaborating and paying attention, and as you said, connecting, this is super important. And when we're thinking about like collaborating, as I shared here with the people you're recommending, often people are not so sure about recommendations, although recommendations really used to be like the number one growth engine in the past. So in the past, Substack's partnership program team, they would say, you know what, the most important thing you need to do is recommend others, so they're gonna reciprocate it, or they're gonna help you as well to grow. Because the idea of recommendations is really that, for instance, Chris is here, I think more than 100 people are here that you're recommending or so. And this rotates then through these 100 people. And then you're gonna see 4 or 5, I think, when you're gonna subscribe to Chris' newsletter. And then automatically, if you have no clue, automatically you're gonna go subscribe to these others. So this is why sometimes it's gonna happen like, hey, Christina, why am I getting your Honor Writing Club newsletter? I'm like then explaining them why, because of the recommendations engine, then they understand it. But most of the time people understand it and then simply unsubscribe without sending you a message or so. But the idea really is that you grow together with others. And this is why, for instance, it's smart to have, when you're writing in a specific niche, or you have a specific category newsletter, that you then like surround yourself with a circle of people that are also, let's say, grief. If it's becoming about grief, we have someone, Brian Smith, and he, for instance, is writing about grief, but from the perspective of a parent who lost his daughter, okay? And then we have others, for instance, who not lost their daughters, but they lost, for instance, their siblings, their partners, mom and dad, you know what I mean? And so he's building like the circle of other grievers around him. So this grieving community, you could call it like that.
Yeah.
And this is what you also can do with recommendations. Maybe you can tell us a bit more, like, let's say percentage related or so. What do you think when it comes to recommendations? How many in your specific niche, and how many are not in your niche?
I have 2 niches. One is the caregiving and one is the poetry and the literature. So I would say 80 out of the 100, if as an 80% are probably in my niche, dead on. The other 20 are probably music related, because I'm just a big fan of music. And when I see the real artists on Substack creating music, I just automatically want to recommend them, especially with their talents that they're bringing out. Because just like poetry, it's very hard to put yourself out there. And the fact that they're doing that, I always admire that. So I feel like it's definitely in my niche, 80%.
I can't tell you the right way to do it. So for instance, when it comes to my newsletter, I have more than 10,000 subscribers coming via recommendations. Of course, it's like an accumulated number, meaning that there will also, of course, unsubscribes, which is just going to happen. And especially if you're doing something like I'm doing with the Honor Writing Clubs, whatever you're doing, even if it's super awesome and you would do the best thing in the world, still people are going to unsubscribe, because as I said, at some point, the inbox is exploding, and you're going to have to think about, okay, who's going to to stay? Is it Chris? Is it Christina? Is it Timothy? Or who's going to stay in the inbox? This is, I think, very important as well when it comes to unsubscribes, because many people are like, oh, Christina, oh my God, whenever I'm sending an email, I'm going to get an unsubscribe. Is this also something that you're experiencing even with your topic, Chris, that people going to follow you for a while and then they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to unsubscribe?
Yeah, I would say that, say every time I post something, right? If I post something, I might lose one or two subscribers, and it might be because their email inbox is too clogged and they want to unsubscribe. But for every one or two I lose for every time I post, I tend to gain like 5, 6, or 7 back from people who discover me anyway. So again, I think it's just a natural realignment going on. And I do agree with you that, so yeah, so I do see it. And I tell my friends all the time, the ones who, they, oh my God, I lost 5 subscribers after posting this post. What did I do wrong? And I'm like, you didn't do anything wrong. People are just, there's so many different reasons it can happen. And you just gotta, keep going and be consistent, and you'll find the right people.
And what you said, like in the beginning, with like the audience you want to have, I think this is the most important. And maybe there's one more thing we can talk about, like when it comes to poems and engagement or feedback, because like in the past, you would have written like a poem, you might have, let's say, posted it on Medium or so, got some feedback. But now with Substack, and as we saw, this was Alpenglow, you get so many comments and so much feedback. How does this feel like for a poet like you, Chris?
Oh, this has been so amazing because I've been very blessed with my community, and I think it's because they know I came from an authentic place. A lot of my poems are getting a lot of comments, and I love seeing when my favorite thing is like, say I get 50 likes and 50 comments, that means there's real engagement going on. It's not just people liking it and moving on. They're liking it and taking the time to comment also. So I saw that with Alpenglow. It blew up a little bit and it has over 100 comments. Another poem I did last week called The Chair, very emotional poem about Braden losing his friend Cadence, fortunately, over Christmas. It happens in the medically fragile community. And this was my tribute to her and her family. That got over 100 likes and 80 comments. So it's really nice to get that real feedback from people where people are genuinely touched. And it really, makes me feel like what I'm saying matters. And at the same time, I hope it helps them realize that I understand some of the pain that they've gone through themselves.
I had to share this because I was reading this and I was then asking myself, okay, who is this girl that this share belonged to? And then you're sharing this photo, and then of course you're making this even more. Yeah, whenever you see an actual face, an actual person, and this is why I think in your case it's really so valuable sharing these pictures. Then somehow, you're like sharing this tribute, and also somehow like I of course I never ever would have met Cadence, but now I'm somehow online meeting Cadence, whether this is a good thing or not, but I like this. We have many people in the online writing club who also, for instance, lost their kids and stuff, and then they are sharing pictures of them, even if it's like when they were babies or so. And it's always so emotional because you're thinking, wow, okay, this could also be my child. And then we're coming back to like full circle to Karen Selmanson with her mortality movement, where you're gonna say, you know what, I just have like this specific amount of time, and why should I, whatever, like worry every day about this and that or whatever when it comes to social media? Why should I spend so much time on social media? And maybe this is something also as a poet. I mean, what do you think? And you are active on Notes, but what do you think about like the social media platform? Again, it could be like you could see it as a business card. I also am there like on a daily basis. You said that I'm prolific. You are also prolific on there. But what do you think about social media that is Notes from the perspective of a poet?
Yeah, for me, it's an amazing platform. For me, my poetry is definitely shareable in snippets, and it's perfect for Notes when I do teasers of my longer posts. So I can have like 4 different stanzas in a poem and tease it on Notes with certain stanzas that emphasize certain things, and it's very digestible. So for my format, it actually works really well because what's to my advantage is people know that I'll tease them with a little couple of lines from my poetry. And when they go to my post, it isn't going to be like a 10-minute read. It might be a 2-minute read that really affects them in a positive way for a longer amount of time. But I think it really lends itself to my writing style, where people know they don't have to spend too much time reading it, but they can sit with it, digest it further, and then emotionally respond to it in a way that I think fits with their lifestyle.
Similar, I think, also when it comes in general, like to midlife stuff. And so I see so many midlife writers. For instance, Ellen Scher is a great example from the club, where she started from zero. She had no clue what to do. And now she's like, whatever, she gets 100 likes and even more with all her notes and her posts and stuff. She has her own vibe, and she's dropping like these F-bombs, and learn from her, Also, what we didn't talk about is that you now earned your first $1,000 with your Substack, because monetization is always a huge thing for the club. And also, again, you are rising now. So you get lots and lots of new paid subscribers. So congratulations to these first $1,000. I hope that you somehow can like create, I guess the life you have created for Bray Bray is already wonderful, but also, of course, it's super hard for you. So maybe with this money, you can also spend some more like quality time, maybe with your wife or so, because if you are a parent, no matter what type of parent you are in this situation, you are always like missing, I guess, this quality time with your wife. This is what I wanted to share as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't just shout out one person. So there's this woman, Kelly, Mothers Who Never Give Up. She has a Substack called Melodies of Courage. She lost her son, Kevin, at 16 years old to leukemia. And I just want to say personally to Kelly, because she deserves all of the love in the world, that she has had a profound impact on my life. Because 2 years ago, when I almost lost my son, I said, well, I don't think I'd ever be able to function if I lost him. And what Kelly is teaching me through her Substack is that, you know what, I might have been barely able to function, but the way she carries her son's legacy forward with such humility and grace, I just had to shout her out, because she deserves the world, and she has affected me on a very, very, very profound level.
And this is here, Melodies of Courage, right? Yeah. This is the one.
Yeah, and she had a post, right, called "He Was Not His Claim," and that particular post was her getting insurance claims 14 months after her son already passed away. And it was like, are you kidding me? So that's the other side of caregiving that I talk about, is the bureaucracy and the system. And I had to shout her out, because what she has gone through has taught me so much and made me feel even more blessed that Braden made it through.
And as you can see now during the live, whenever I can, I like something and I restack something, because only this can really make people smile and help people. So for instance, Chris, as an example, I guess you did like my post with the internet is dead and stuff. And so often you have the feeling, oh, no one cares. This is not true, because all these people are lurking in the dark. And often when I'm having like my boot camps and stuff, or else when it comes to the paid subscriptions, people are going to say, hey, Christina, I've been following you for years. I'm like, what? I've never heard of your name. You know, what is it like, Karen? And then she's going to say, yeah, but I've been following you on Medium and on YouTube and on something. So this is maybe something that we can like encourage everyone. Really is similar here to what we learned here from Melodies of Courage, is especially if you're sharing such a vulnerable topic, and you have the feeling no one is reading it. There are people out there. You can also see it with the views. If you check the views, we have many inside the club who see lots of views also coming from Google. So you have the views, but what's lacking is the engagement. But again, when it comes to these topics, of course, at some stage, you're going to get the engagement, which is, of course, amazing. So Kelly, for instance, I'm checking here something, she gets then whatever, like 16 comments or so. But you have to also keep the situation of these people in mind, because if they lost their son or their daughter, they might not feel ready to communicate and articulate their pain. But then maybe after 2 years or 3 years, they're going to say, you know what? You're having this program where I can meet other grievers, and I want to join it because I'm loving what you're sharing. I think this is such a beautiful message, and all the hopes and prayers to Kelly. And this is like the worst thing that can happen to you. Of course, there are lots of things that can happen, but one of the worst things that can happen in your life. Chris, this was such an amazing session, I would say. Also, thank you so much for all the people joining us. It was delightful. And Chris, how can we best connect with you if we're now in love with you and would love to subscribe?
Sure. I'm right here on chrisbwright.substack.com. That's where I share all of my adventures with Bray Bray. And Christina, I can't thank you enough for this. It's people like you and my friend Jess the Creator, another bestseller that I'm friends with. It's people like you guys that have really, took me under their wing and helped me out. And I truly appreciate that.
Chris, this is wonderful. But at the end, it's really you doing your thing. This is always what I say. So it's just like me somehow like curating, you know what I mean? Like bringing or renting you my audience and people, so they're gonna see you, and so you gonna shine on yourself on your own. And this is, I think, the best, because you created like somehow also like a category newsletter and your category community there, similar to your friend here with Kelly. And I think this is the best. Do it your way. I think this is like the most important thing. And again, also like hopes and prayers for you and your family. All the best. And again, I wish that, let's say in a few months, we're going to have another live where you're going to tell me, Christine, you know what? I'm now earning $5,000 to $10,000 because all the money, this is so important. So I would really encourage everyone to subscribe, not subscribe for subscribe, but really if you love him now and like him, then do this. And of course, follow him. And yeah, maybe the best would also be to join one of his live sessions and the community. So Chris, thank you so much. It was delightful. And I wish you a wonderful day and spring break with the kids.
Oh, thank you so much. And same to you.